At this point in your academic journey at OCC, you should be able to set up an Excel spreadsheet appropriately. So I want to show you some of the criteria that myself and the other instructors are using in gauging your format. What I am showing you is an Excel spreadsheet. It is actually a sample or example resident roster completed by nursing homes when the Department of Health walks in. This document is actually an Excel spreadsheet here. Some electronic medical record systems do create this document. However, it needs to capture the resident's status at the time the Department of Health walks in and requests it. And as you remember from your 103 class, the MDS is only updated every quarter. So some of the data could be outdated and the staff need to update it. So what we chose to do at Van Dyne was create an Excel spreadsheet. It is actually 2 sheets. Sheet 1 and sheet 2 both contain information. I'm going to focus on sheet 1 for this demonstration. As you look at the document, you will see columns going through with various different criteria about the resident's status. And we have so many columns that we actually extend through the single characters to the double characters, all through the AA to AZ, the BA to the BY. So it's a Y document. Column number A, or column letter A, represents the resident's room, and column B represents the resident's name. And I'm going to scroll down and you will see that we have so many residents that we go all the way down to row 34 with resident specific information, and then row 35 contains our totals for each of the applicable columns. To give you an indication as to how large this document really is and some of the problems you will face if you do not have appropriate page setup, I am going to go to File, Print, where we will be able to take a look at this document. So if you look down here, you will see that we actually are one of 8 pages. And when I flip through from page 1 to page 2, you're going to see that page 2 loses the row heading that was in row A. So we really don't know, if we were to look at a specific column, we really don't know what that column tag represents. Page 3, we have our column tag back in the row A, but we don't have resident specific information. So here again, we do not know who this particular cell would represent. And now on page 4, I have just data. I do not know which resident. I do not know which column tag. Going back to row 5, 6, 7, and 8. And this was indicative of some of the projects that we have seen already through the submissions of the assignments in your HIT 202 course and HIT 205. Closing our print screen down, I want to show you a couple things that you need to be mindful of. First and foremost, anytime you feel your document is going to go to multiple pages, you need to do a couple things. You need to identify which rows and which columns should automatically print on every single page. And that is probably one of the first things you should do when you start to set up your data. If you can see right here between column V and column W, I have a dotted line, and that is an indication of where my page break is. So everything from column Y over, when I go to do my print preview, is not going to have patient information. Scrolling down, it's a little bit harder for us to see where our page break is, but I believe it's between row 21 and row 22 based on this little line here. So everything down below row 22 and below is not going to have the column header or the row header we see in row A. So the first couple things we can do, let's go under page setup. And depending on what edition of Excel you have, you will be able to do this. You just have to look for the function for page setup. So first and foremost, let's change this to a landscape document because we know it is wider than it is longer. Then if we take a look, I'm not going to touch the margins at this point, and I'm not going to touch the header and footer. I'm going to go into the sheet concept. And in the sheet, we are able to identify rows to repeat at the top and columns to repeat at the left. So let's take a look at how to do those and then show you the effects. By clicking on this cell here, or this field, rows to repeat at the top, I am able to click on the actual spreadsheet. It will open up and allow me to click on the actual tab. And if you take a look here, it automatically fills it in by my clicking on it. I'm going to click back, and if you see on this little graph, it adds my data. So again, let's go down to the columns. I'm going to click and make sure I'm in the field. I'm going to click on the little toolbar to the right of the field, and it is going to allow me to click a field. Now this one, I think it's important for us to have both the room number and the patient name here. So I'm going to highlight both of them. As you can see, they're both highlighted. The A and B is picked up in the format. I'm going to click back on my little quick link, and it's going to take me back to my page setup form. And of course, we want to make sure we hit OK. I could have clicked on print preview right there, but then what happens is a lot of people forget when they close out the print preview to click the OK button and your changes aren't saved. So I always make sure I hit OK. Now here's a really important thing for you to think about. As you've been playing with your data and as you've been setting it up, it takes a lot of time for you to get your data into the appropriate format. One of the things I always tell everybody to do is to save your document before you start manipulating it. So I have my data here. I'm going to do a file save as real quickly just so I can make sure I have saved the data. And I'm going to save it to a temporary file only because it makes it a little bit easier for me to pull out the working copies per se. So now my data is saved. So if I don't like what I do moving this port forward, I can always go back and take care of and back to the same point. So let's do our file print. Now when we have a file print, you're going to see that I have 4 pages. I am in a landscape format, so I am a little bit wider than I am longer. I don't know if it is possible for us to fit every one of our pages on, or our entire document onto just one page. But this is better than 8 pages, because look what happens when I go and I click my next button. When I go down and I pick up the pages or the residents from row 22 on, not only do I have the resident information, I have all of the column information. Page 3 allows me to see what happens when we pick up the additional columns. And these are actually the columns that are represented by the B, S, B, Y range. And here again, I still have my resident information, clicking on down. So it is an easy way for me to set up my data. Moving forward, I think that all of you should get in the habit of making sure your Excel spreadsheets are in a easy to read format for myself, but also for as you're going out on your clinical sites. You do not want to give your clinical site supervisor a document that has empty pages or illogical or unusable pages. I hope this helps.